Hag Shemesh, and welcome back to Next Scene Podcast, the podcast taking on the Festival of Lights one episode at a time. Once again, I'm your host, Sean, and unfortunately, once again, my co-host, Brian, could not be with us tonight. But in his stead, we have two wonderful, magical, very special guests, all the way from Real Comic Heroes and the Marvel Events Timeline podcast. It's Travis Bowe. Welcome, Travis.
Hello there.
Hello. And also darkening our doorstep this fine evening from Minute Impossible and the Cast and the Furious, it's Jonathan Howell. Welcome, Jonathan.
Another Jew is here. Ah.
Yeah, there is I need a quota. At least 50% of the guests for the podcast must be Jewish for this to be an official Hanukkah podcast. So,
and since I'm a man, your entire podcast is now Jewish. So, mazel tov.
I thought it was the mother of the podcast.
It is. I'm just making up new things.
Just making up. No, but now see, I need 10 Jews. You need a minion to circumcise the podcast, as it was.
Banana. It's my favorite minion. Whoever says that, whichever one of them says that.
I think that's
the one with one eye.
I always wonder, like, who knows the names of the minions?
Bob.
Because they never, it's like Star Wars. They never say the names in the thing. It's only on the toys that have the names. It's like Walrus Man. They never say Walrus Man in Star Wars.
Sure.
You got to get the toy. But I know, listeners, you hate it when we talk about the toys. Actually, so we are here to talk about, for this seventh night of Hanukkah, we are talking about the 8 defensive points of Hanukkah, which is the season finale for season 5 of The League. Originally broadcast on the 20th of November, 2013. And it was an early Hanukkah that year, 2013. Hanukkah would start November 27th, just 1 week after this episode aired.
Yeah, Tebow, did you know that Hanukkah moves around?
I knew it moved. I didn't realize it could start in late November.
I've had it in Thanksgiving. Yeah. We've had recently in the past 5 years, we've had Hanukkah at Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving Hanukkah.
What determines that?
The Jewish calendar.
I guess I should say I know nothing about Hanukkah or much of the Jewish faith.
It's okay. It's the Jewish calendar, which is not based on 365 days.
Right.
So the calendar is off.
Okay. I mean, that's
it's a lunar calendar.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 12 months, but they're all 30 days. So it's 360 days instead of 365. And instead of doing a leap day, they do a leap month. I should say we, because I'm Jewish, but I don't do it. So anyway, in the lunar calendar, in the Jewish calendar, there's a leap month every few years. So it'll move around. It'll get earlier and earlier and earlier, and then suddenly it jumps to be very late.
Gotcha.
But like Jonathan said, you can get a Thanksgiving Hanukkah. Yeah.
The good thing is it's also the year 5,783.
Woo!
So we got that going for us.
Yeah, high score.
Yeah, high score.
We are obviously winning the calendar war here.
Yes. And as with all wars, when Jews win wars, they definitely get to keep the land that they won and don't have to fight for it for the next 2,000 years. It's very...
we ain't... No give backs, no take backs. We called it. So. Golan Heights, not happening.
Does every episode get this Jewish?
I came here for an education, so I'm enjoying
not right
this.
away. We are trying to be educational. I know some of our listeners may not know as much about Hanukkah as some of the other holidays we've covered in the past. So yeah, we try to, it's edutainment. We try to teach while we entertain, and we do very little of both. So speaking of Hanukkah and the League and entertaining and educating, why don't you educate our listeners before we dive into the action? Let us know what's your history with this episode, with the 8 defensive points of Hanukkah. And I'll start with you, Jonathan.
I've seen this episode twice. First time I watched it was the first time I watched The League. And then over COVID, I watched The League again because it's fantastic. And it reminded me how great The League is. This is my history is I'm a fan of The League. So wasn't at first, probably picked it up season 3 once somebody told me it has nothing to do with football. Because at first, because I'm in a fantasy football league, as you well know, Sean, you've been in before, and
Yes.
and Tebow too.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, ugh, I literally don't want to watch a show like it's what someone told me was it's like sports night. It's not really about sports. Oh, okay. I'm like, okay, cool. And once I knew, I think at that point I was not on the radar of Nick Kroll. Like Nick Kroll's not on my radar. I
Mhm.
knew a lot of the other guys from How Did This Get Made and podcasts that I liked, but I did not know Nick Kroll. Nick Kroll had just finished the Kroll show, or not just finished, but he had that was his last thing, and I didn't really find him that funny. Now I do. He's freaking hilarious. So that's where
Right. Yeah, he's funny. For some reason, the Kroll show was not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
other
he's
stuff
doing-
he's done was good.
Yeah.
How about you, Travis? What's your history with the show, with this program?
We adopted, we jumped on the show early on because they would have been running promos for the league as we were watching It's Always Sunny.
Mm-hmm.
So we definitely started it. Maybe not very first week, but pretty soon into season 1, we were watching every episode. So and continued to watch it through the end of the series, and have rewatched the series a handful of times, and love the show. I will say the final season, it's really bad. There's some good episodes in there and some fun ideas, but they go some weird places, and that's what always ruins a rewatch for me of the league, is just getting to that final season.
Yeah, I'll tend to agree. So yeah, I was not familiar with most of the main actors. Probably Nick Kroll's the only exception, but
Yeah.
And probably found it the same way. I think I watched from the first season, but probably saw it, watching It's Always Sunny and seeing promos for it. But I got into fantasy football right around the time the program started, so it kind of worked out well for me. Around 2008, 2009 is when I started. When I started on fantasy and started watching the program. So yeah, I watched all the episodes as they came out. I think I've done 2 complete rewatches, start to finish, of the series, and then obviously preparing for the podcast. Well, actually, not obviously from listening to me, but I did watch the episode several times in preparation.
We would watch Always Sunny. You would watch The League. Then you would watch Sons of Anarchy. That
Yeah.
was your FX block.
See, I would do Rescue Me, and then
Never
like
did.
Sunny, and they had one show about addicts in a support group. That one stayed only lasted one season. The FX had a great lineup for a little while, but a lot of shows just fell off. But
Yeah, it kind of did fall off at the end, but I think it was really good. And like you said, Jonathan, it's if you can still enjoy it if you're not into fantasy. It's like if you're not a doctor, you can still watch Children's Hospital,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I mean, I think there's a lot of little things. If you happen to know the players and know a bit about fantasy, then I think it helps. And it's part of the joke that they get so serious about an 8-team league. And if for folks that aren't familiar with fantasy football, what you do is you pick players and you get points based on how the players actually perform. But there's so many good players. I mean, there's and so many games each weekend that if you've only got 8 people playing, everyone's going to have a stacked team. It's not really it's not really competitive, not really serious. I mean, my league was 12 teams, which is kind of the minimum. And then the last few years, it kind of got down to 10. And then that's a sign that the league's kind of petering out. You really need 12, or even 16 teams for a serious fantasy league. So the fact that they've only the league in the show is only eight teams.
Okay,
is actually, they mentioned a couple times that they get so serious about a league that really isn't, most other fantasy players would not consider them to have a serious league.
That's great. I never picked up on that. I never understood why why their league was kind of amateur.
People always make a face in the show. They're always like, "Oh, we're an 8-man league," and then people go, "Ugh."
Yeah,
Like, why bother?
Yeah, I've aside from the one time I played fantasy with, like Jonathan said, with him, and I've done some fantasy hockey a couple of years, but yeah, the rules of fantasy sports are completely lost on me. I mean, I get how the player performs and then you score those points, but that was never what the show was about for me. So it was easy to, because they are so good and so funny at conveying why they're angry about, this player dropping a pass or whatever. That always worked really well.
Well, the show's I mean, that's the great thing about the show. It's about the week, that 3 or 4 days in between.
Right.
I don't remember at this point there were Thursday night games yet. Like that difference between Monday and Sunday.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like that was their life, and that was the show. Because very rarely were they actually, until at the end, like somebody won. We'll get into it. We talk about the episode, but there's someone who wins gets a specific trophy, and someone who loses gets a specific trophy. That kind of stuff is in there. But all you have to know is, at the level Travis is doing it, is literally there's a game and somebody wins and somebody loses, and they're always yelling at each other, and everybody wants to win. So that's all you need.
And they're very, in you can tell they're friends, but most of them don't like each other, and they all hate one particular person. It's an odd collection of people. One guy doesn't even know what he's doing, so well.
Yeah, that's all you need to know. They're friends who really dislike each other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is based on. I mean, if we're gonna get into the third, this is Jeff Schaefer, who created it with his wife. He is Kevin. His wife is what's her face?
Jenny.
Yeah. That they. I mean, one, she looks like her, and he doesn't look like. I guess he is kind of a Kevin.
Mm.
So, but it's I guess this is their friends.
Okay.
Which is pretty hilarious. I mean, obviously these are all creations.
And so their friends get to fight over who's the Andre,
right,
of the group. But anyway, so speaking of Andre, let's dive into the action here. So we open Act 1, Scene 1, as it were, opens in the MacArthur living room where the gang often gather to watch the football, and we get kind of the not directly Hanukkah, but we get some Jewish content right off the bat. Jenny saying she's really coming around to Judaism. And I hadn't, in preparing, I hadn't actually watched the previous episode, which probably would help. Seems like there was some lead in. I guess maybe she got some good fantasy tips from a rabbi or something. But
I felt a little lost too, because there were things, I think a minute or two in, they referenced someone named Ben, and I couldn't remember who Ben was. So yeah, it was. I guess it's been several years since I've watched the show, so there were a few things like that. Like I couldn't remember what the setup was for. We'll get into it, but the impetus behind certain people converting to Judaism in this episode. So,
I mean, this my first note was you can't watch this if you've not seen the season.
Right.
These characters are already. They're already running by the time you get to this. I'll see you in the 5th season. I do recommend the show. I'll recommend it now before, as we move on. This show's great. But if you don't know their dynamic, you're not going to find this as funny as I find it. And probably you guys find it because you've seen every episode. So we're all kind of like just the way they rib each other. It's very specific.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to know, you have to know Ruxin. You have to know who he is.
Yeah.
You have to know Taco. You have to know
Andre and yeah. Kevin and Pete's dynamic and
and Rothy, and they run over some things really quickly. You're like, who is Ruxin's homeless friend? Why the relationships.
The only thing I can tell you in that is Jason Mantzoukas is playing what he always plays, which is Jason Mantzoukas being insane.
Just a trash person.
He's the same person he is on A Good Place. He's the same person he is in most things he's in.
Which is perfect, which is all you need.
Right.
And, should be no shortage of work where you just I need a Jason Mantzoukas type. Get me, Jason Mantzoukas.
We need someone on the show who's weirder than Taco.
Yeah.
And dangerous.
We need someone that the audience can smell, even though there's no smell-o-vision.
There you go.
We'll get you Jason Mantzoukas. And Jason, we mean that with love in the best possible way. If you're listening, and of course we know you're not.
What up, jerk?
What up, jerk?
Yeah. What up, jerks? But yeah, so they're trash talking. There's back and forth about about the fantasy football, about pranks they play on each other to try to mess each other up to not win or to lose even. And it turns out, so Pete is losing to Taco, who is, I guess, not bright, maybe the nicest way to say it. For folks who aren't familiar with the show or the characters, but yet somehow has figured out how to send a video message. And so they cut.
Taco is Kevin's brother.
Yeah.
Taco is Kevin's brother.
He's the stoner. He doesn't care about fantasy football. And
everything he does, he makes money at because he's a genius. Like, not on purpose. It's the dumbest things ever, but they all make money. And he gets every episode, or at least every season, something of his gets bought by someone else. And then he's just kind of done with that idea. It's literally how the writers move on to new ideas. There's like, I had that idea, but I sold it for like $500,000. You're like, what?
I was shocked that the EBDB appeared in this episode, and I guess apologies if I'm skipping to.
Jump around. That's
fine. Right now. I mean, if you had asked me when the Eskimo Brother database came up, it would not have been the last
season
episode
5,
of the fifth season. I would have been like, oh, that's season 2.
They definitely came up with the concept of Eskimo Brothers, and I think this is the first place I had ever heard that. And apologies, I know that is a offensive term, but
if it helps, they're not using it in that way.
Not at all. Yeah,
they're talking about it as if why is it Eskimo? Because it's for those that are listening that aren't going to watch the show and just listening to this for fun. Eskimo Brothers is when you've slept with the same person. You and another person have slept with the same person. So there is a
not at the same
Kevin
time
Bacon
necessarily
style. There is a 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of thing going on.
You have one person in common that you've both slept with.
Mm-hmm. You're friend of a friend kind of thing with physical contact, which
your brother.
I also had.
You're now
an
Eskimo brother. You're now an Eskimo. I've never heard this term. Never heard someone say, like, if Travis and I in college had both slept with the same person, we would be Eskimo brothers. Right. And in this show, that gives you a certain level of, hey man, he's my Eskimo brother, so I can ask him like to take me to the airport.
Taco uses it like Airbnb. To him, it's I can sleep on this guy's couch if I'm traveling through wherever.
Yes.
So he's created this network across the country, almost across the world, it seems, of just this database and this network. And
I feel like these guys were riffing on even better writing that's on Arrested Development of the blah 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 blog. Those kind of words that all sound the same. They came up with Eskimo Brother, and then they had, because they didn't call it really EB. They never called it EB until the DB, the database.
And that,
and it became like the EBDB B&B.
That's right. The B&B.
It's all it's a shtick.
Yeah, it's a certain alliteration. It kind of automatopoeia. It rolls.
And if you don't know in this episode, they do not explain any of it. It's just, but of course, it's the 5th season and it's the last episode of the season.
Yeah, but I kind of like that they don't explain anything. Which if if you're familiar with the series or if you've watched it all the way through, you can just jump in and watch an episode here or there. But if you haven't, then you're going to be completely lost. But it's kind of like Festivus, where it became a thing. Like I'd never heard of Eskimo Brothers before the show, but now, like, if I say it, people in the know will know what I'm talking about.
Oh, for sure,
that's a tautology.
That was a nice thing about this show is that it is like a full season-long arc that the show will.
Yeah, it's a season.
Season, I mean, it truly is. It's not. Yeah, the episodes aren't.
Starts with the draft, ends with the final game.
Right. Yeah.
They're not episodic in any way. Like they're not. Like,
there's callbacks to things from previous seasons, previous episodes, of course, and
and it's they're stupid people intelligently written, which I always enjoy. Like, these characters are. If they're not low intelligence, they do a lot of low intelligence things.
Right.
Maybe just they let their emotions get the better of them. But the writing is smart. It's smart writing of not smart characters.
Horrible people with good jobs. They're
right.
That's why Always Sunny. I mean, this is why this show, the league exists because Always Sunny exists.
Yeah.
Always Sunny was we've talked about this. Tebow and I are huge fans of that. I don't know. Sean, are you a fan of Sunny?
I am a fan. I'm a huge fan. Well, I'm a big fan. Huge may be overstating it, but I am a fan. Yes.
But it's one of those things where it's like there's always been the bad people doing good things, but this show at least has a level of they always eat at the Chicago stuff. I live in Chicago, and it's always makes me laugh. Nothing obviously is shot in Chicago.
Yeah,
but they're always at Morton's Steakhouse. That's where they go get drinks. They're always like if you look out the window of where they are later on when they're at whose house are they? I can't remember. Oh, they're at Pete's house.
yeah.
And you look out the window, I'm like, where are they? I was like trying to figure out in Chicago because it's a green screen. And I was looking at it, I was like, oh, come on. So they're always
it's the equivalent of, every house or every apartment in Paris looks out perfectly on the Eiffel Tower, you know.
Yes,
So in this first scene, so they've set up that it's I think they set up it's the final week of the season. They're determining who's going to be playing for the championship, what they call the Shiva, and then who's going to be playing for the Ruxin, which is the trophy that the last place team gets. And then they also set up this storyline with Taco and the EBDB. Then cut to a very short second scene where we see Andre, who is a plastic surgeon, walking down the street, and he sees I guess not a billboard, a bench advertisement from a competing plastic surgeon who is moving in on his territory of toe plastic surgery.
Played by Tom Haverford.
Yeah.
What did you call it? Tobesity.
Yeah.
Fat toes.
So they'll set up Andre's storyline, and then we cut to, I think is that Pete's apartment?
Yeah. Yes, with the questionable background.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, with the questionable background. Yeah, so this is
they all live in lofts.
Yeah, they all live in these huge spaces. So we get
successful. They're super successful. That's how they're different than the Sunny guys.
Sunny guys. They're actually successful. Yeah. So we get more introduction to the problems that Kevin's had. Both Kevin and Pete have had with their season. We get more talk of the Ruxin from Ruxin, and we get more talk of the EBDB from Taco, and then
and very
and then Andre comes in and talks about his beef that he's got with
he's beefing
with Dr. Roca there. He's beefing.
He's hot beefing.
Yeah. And that's for the folks that are familiar with the show, like that's Andre's thing. Like he's trying to make fetch happen.
Yeah.
He's got like a different catchphrase every episode, and it never catches on.
He's always chasing trends.
Andre is the bias. He doesn't know what he's saying. Like when he says stuff, you're like, what? His friends constantly make fun of, like everyone makes fun of him. I don't remember I guarantee you there was somebody in our group that was this friend, but Jesus, this guy takes on a lot of shit, eats a lot of shit. I was like, man, I don't remember. I guarantee you there's somebody. If you're out there listening, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If you're not sure who it is in your friend group, it's you.
No.
Oh no. I think this is something, well, I would say we had an Andre in our friend group, but like in high school, this is something you really should outgrow.
Yeah.
By the time you finish college, like by the time you're early 20s, if I don't believe in frenemy, if someone's your friend, they're your friend. If they're your enemy, don't associate. You're an adult. You don't have to associate with that person. Now, if it's a coworker, that's a different thing, or a family member. But in terms of just friends, if you don't like someone, don't be mean to them. Just don't be around them. That an adult has an Andre in their group is kind of weird.
I really wish that they had cut this storyline from the episode, because this episode there's too much going on because this is their season finale season finale. They're trying to do they're trying to make it a Christmas episode or a Hanukkah episode as well. I didn't know
more Christmas than Hanukkah.
I didn't know that this episode was set, at Christmas or Hanukkah until like the third act when Andre when they're
in pageant.
They're in the church.
Before that, when they're in Kevin and Jenny's house, and there's a few Christmas decorations up, and then Andre says something like, "Oh, these decorations are terrible." I didn't know. Right. At this point, I know okay, if they're at the season finale, then that means they're at the end of the football season, which I understand is around, is going to be in December. So mentally, I know this episode is set at Christmas time, but it's not in the episode at all. And so I think like this Andre other doctor storyline should have gone so that we could get more, EBDB stuff, more the Judaism conversion, more of Rafi and Ruxin's sister, that storyline that we'll get into.
Well, or more of
this season came out when this season comes out. It's I have a thing up of when it started, September 4th, 2013. So it's probably a Christmas episode. Their season probably ended at Christmas time,
right?
So there's no other than the name of it being about Hanukkah. It's not enough Hanukkah in it for me,
right?
Guys, I'm saying it too early, but there's not enough Hanukkah in this for me. Or Christmas, really. I mean, really, it just ends. It just ends in a church.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
That doesn't necessarily need to be. Yeah, I will say they could have, they felt like, oh, we need to include Andre because he's a character in the ensemble. We want to include him. Just, have him going up against Jenny in the championship game and get him included that way. And I do think they could have done more with Ruxin and his sister Rebbe and Rafi and the kid.
Because the Andre and Aziz storyline, that could have happened in any episode. I get the feeling that they wanted to do this storyline with Andre and give him a nemesis, but it didn't need to be in this episode.
Yeah, I wonder how many.
Because we listen to Tebow and I listen to the Always Sunny podcast, so you now hear like how you break stories and how in the writers' room they write this. Guaranteed, this was a post-it note on the board at the beginning of the season, and they're kind of like, well, how do we
slot this in?
Do we wrap it up? And I would have been fine with them not wrapping it up and have him come back another season. This show doesn't have to have every arc. The big arc is really the season. It doesn't matter to me. And whoever wins the Ruxin or the Sacco award, at the end for who's the worst, those are always the funniest parts. I don't care about. Basically, give me Raffi and Dirty Randy.
Yeah.
And I don't care about any other storylines, like the storylines of Kevin and his wife being mad at each other and then coming back together. That's that part with Pete that doesn't need to be part of this. They could just be mad at each other, but then they make up and she lets him tinker with hers and he lets her tinker with his. And that could be because that's that's one of those things I think doesn't translate in this show is them in bed later on. I'm skipping all around.
That's fine. Yeah.
And they're canoodling and talking about, their lineup. These people love fantasy football. I barely look at it on my phone. I set up my team and I talk some crap at the beginning of the season, and then I don't even look at it. Like I'm just kind of like,
you don't roster bait.
Well, no, I don't roster bait. It's one of the amount of tinkering they do. I want to go. You're an eight person team, like Sean said. Everyone's available.
Yeah, there's so many players. Yeah, I'm guessing the
you not have roster, Patrick Mahomes, then get Tom Brady because he's probably available.
Yeah, the average roster, most leagues probably have 15 players. I assume they're not doing well. They talk about team defense, so they're not doing individual defensive players. So you have 9 players and 6 on the bench, so that's 15 players through for 8 teams. So there's a lot of people just available on the waiver wire, just out there to pick up for free.
One thing we didn't say, Sean, our bona fides. Are you in your playoffs for your fantasy league this year?
I didn't. I dropped off. So I had a money league that actually paid money that we actually was 150, which I know is not a ton of money, but it was enough to make sure people were paying attention.
Oh yeah.
And I will say, so that league actually fell apart when COVID happened. So like the 2019 season, we probably went from like 2008 to 2019, which I won. I won that final season, and it was a work league. And you may think, well, COVID and everyone's staying at home, you probably had a lot more time. You could have done, why didn't you get more into it? It started off as an office league, and then people changed jobs and went to other businesses and stuff. So it kind of spread, and then someone would leave and then there'd be room in the league and people from that new company would come and join. It kind of started to spread out. And like I said previously, then the last couple seasons, we were down to 8 teams. It was kind of petering out. But I won that final season and then we stopped. So I'm still the champion.
Nice.
I am the champion.
You're the reigning champion?
I am the reigning champion until that league picks up again. And
You're
then
a real Rocky Balboa. You're just like, I'm not fighting anymore.
I'm not fighting anymore.
Ain't gonna be no rematch.
Hanging up. Drop the mic. Ain't gonna be a rematch. So yeah, I mean, I've played with these gentlemen. We was it 2 seasons, a season or 2? But that was, I mean, there was no money changed hands. There was no trophy. That was just kind of for fun. So I still hold on to. I am the champion, kind of in the clubhouse. And I did not do any fantasy this year. But so Jonathan, how are you doing? Are you in your champions? Your
Both. I am number 1 seed in my kids league where I'm beating children and adults alike.
Excellent.
The kids are actually better at this than we are because they actually remember stats. And and my work league, which is also a pay league, I am in 3rd place, so I got in the playoffs, so no problem there. But I'm unfortunately up against a girl that has a 13-1 season. She's killing it, and so I'm just like, well, I'll win hopefully I'll win this week, and then this is the playoffs. I'm in the playoffs. I'm in the quarterfinals, so hopefully I'll go to the finals. I hope someone knocks her out because she's insanely good at this game. I found out that she's won every year with almost undefeated team every time.
Whoops.
And she's not changing much. And I'm like, how is she picking these people? So
does she just draft really well, or she work in the waivers,
she drafts well, super well.
Yeah.
She picks like people that are just half of her team. Also, none of her team got hurt this year. None of them.
Yeah.
2 of my people got hurt, and it allotted for like 40%. Like 40% of my points were from these 2 people. So I was like, okay, well, hey, we've talked a lot about our leagues.
Yeah. So Travis, are you doing? I forgot if you said. Are you doing fantasy this year?
No, I haven't done any fantasy since we did our last hockey league.
Yeah. That hockey was too confusing for me.
It's too much stuff.
If I remember, I think I did okay, but I had no idea what was going on. Football is good. Like there's a week, like, the games, sure. Well, now they start Thursday and then the last game's Monday. And like, that's the points. And then you got a couple of days to kind of reassess and plan for the next week, where like hockey, it's
the team plays every other day. So your week is, has to be like a week's time. And in that time they're playing 4 games.
But there isn't there's games every day. There isn't like any day of the week where it's like, correct. Okay, every team is off and now I can reassess and bench people or trade people or, pick people up, free agents. Like, no, there's always games.
Like right now I have someone who is questionable, but that's for Sunday. So I don't have to worry about that right now.
Yeah.
I've still got 2 days to wait.
You got 2 days. You got plenty of time. So, all right. So that's kind of like, I think we hit the main points of that first act. So let's pull away from, as we've already done, kind of pull away from the action of the episode. And we kind of started to touch on it, but let me officially ask the question. Does this qualify as a true Hanukkah special? Or as I put it, is this kind of like a Christmas special where they've got the one Jewish friend? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I do not think this is a good holiday episode. We've talked about it a lot. Sonny made a Christmas, they call it a movie. It's like an hour and whatever qualified, like hour and 10 minutes or something like that. It's a long episode, but it's a Christmas episode, and that's a fun rewatch. It's a fun Christmas special. I wish they had done that here. Make it a holiday episode, incorporate all the Hanukkah elements that they need, incorporate the Christmas elements for the other members of the crew who celebrate Christmas. Like, just I wish it had been a holiday episode that then culminates in the end of their season at the church where it ends. Like, they could have done all that, but instead they did the EBDB stuff, which again put it somewhere else in the season. Or save it for next season, or same with the Andre and his Nemesis thing. Like, no, this one doesn't work as a holiday episode for me.
I think this is why we're getting to. I have actually in front of me from Ranker the list of they ranked the seasons as best to worst.
Oh.
And the 5th and 6th season are 5th and 6th. 5, 6, 7 is 5, 6, 7. The 5th, 6th, and 7th seasons are the least popular seasons, and I think it's because what you're talking about, Tebow, is there's a weight to how much they've created in this world,
Mhm.
and they're trying to deal with it.
Well, and they're also doing, 13 episodes in a season. They're trying to cram in, they have to cram in an entire football season, which obviously they cut a lot of
Sure.
out of that. But then, yeah, they're trying to do a season's worth of a show in 13 episodes, which isn't uncommon now, especially. But then this is right around the time when short seasons like this is not the standard. It's starting to become that way around this time, but it's still kind of new. So it's still a lot of elements to try and shove into a season.
Yeah, they started in 2011 and they were never anything but 13.
Mm.
Whereas you like Sunny had a normal 22
Six,
episode
yeah.
season, and then you're like, Jesus, 26 episodes, whatever it is. And now you're like, oh, it's like 10. Fine.
Yeah.
I don't care. And it's
Yeah,
better
10
writing.
good ones.
And
Right.
it's better writing. I think they have that problem with this. It's not a Christmas one to me either. It's also not Hanukkah. I like the end of it. I love that it's done in a church at the end. Like when we get to the third act, it's great. But I do think it suffers from just too much going on. The B and the C storyline should have been cut completely. And I think it's a stronger episode overall.
Yeah, they've got stuff that really, there's nothing to do with holiday, with the with Christmas or Hanukkah, or even the end of the season, really not directly related to football or the fantasy. They've got the Ruxin, Rafi, Rebecca sort of triangle, or that storyline, which allows them to introduce some Jewish concepts. There's, we see the candelabra, the menorah, and the dreidel. So there is some mention of Hanukkah specific things.
She can't work on the Sabbath.
Can't work on this.
See, and there's stuff like that hell, they got Lizzie Kaplan in this episode, and that was a nice surprise. But how great would it have been if this was a season-long, build-up for Rafi wanting to have sex with Ruxin's sister? That should have been a long, stretched-out, and it might have started like an episode or two prior to this one.
It did.
I think the writer, I think what his name is, Jeff Schaefer. I think he, who is Jewish, I think he was towing the line on all of the Jewish stuff and the Christianity, because he knew it turns people off when it's too you're asking for a Christmas episode, but some people are like, ugh, that's annoying. Whereas he also is trying not to bash, because Ruxin is a self-hating Jew. So by doing stories around his Judaism, it's always negative stuff. Yeah, like the time. Remember the time he drew the swastika on his street? So that you don't want to. He doesn't want to fall in these pitfalls. This guy, this guy wrote for Seinfeld, and it was an executive producer.
Okay.
Wrote my favorite, one of your favorite movies, Euro Trip. Wrote and directed Euro Trip.
Yeah,
the guy who did. I mean, it's fantastic stuff. So I think he was. I think in the writer's room, by the 5th season, you've got more writers than the original person writing. So I just think there's too much crap on the wall.
And I think this the only time that they touched on the holidays? I mean, because every season of the show ends in December, right? Or
like a football season.
Right. So is this the only time they touched on Hanukkah or Christmas?
I can't remember. I remember there being episodes in the snow.
It seems like there's a lot of episodes in the snow.
Well, because there's there's like a Krampus episode.
Oh, right.
I don't think they do, not every season, because I think, what was it, season 6, did they go to Hawaii, or maybe no, they went to like California. There's one season that wraps up, they're on the beach. Instead of in Chicago.
They go to Laguna Beach,
So, but I think, not every season, they don't necessarily do a holiday special, but they've done maybe half the seasons, maybe 3 or 4 out of the 7. They do some overt holiday stuff, whether it's this, where the title of the episode mentions Hanukkah, or like the Krampus episodes or something like that. But it's mixed. Yeah, so obviously there's some things that have nothing to do with the holidays, but I will give it points that they don't prioritize or kind of mention Christmas more than Hanukkah. As I've said
No, I
before, like to put together the list of episodes that we decided to use for this season, I just kind of went online and searched like best or most popular
Mm-hmm.
Hanukkah TV episodes, and some of the ones that come up are, they're literally, it's a Christmas episode where the main character has one friend who's Jewish. Like there's very little Jewish content and
Right.
even less Hanukkah content. So in that context, like in the range of the 8 episodes that we're covering for the podcast, it's actually above average in terms of content. And Hanukkah is not overshadowed by Christmas, which is amazing because the Hanukkah gets very little mention.
I don't even
But
think they say Christmas in this episode.
I'm looking it up, and there's some things wrong in that ranker thing. They started in 2009, and it was 6 episodes was the first season.
Yeah. That seemed
But,
like a standard
Here,
FX.
this will remind you, Kegel the Elf.
Mm.
Kegel the Elf.
Kegel the Elf.
So they did do an
Okay.
episode called Kegel the Elf.
Yeah.
yeah.
There's one called Saint Pete. So it looks like their
Oh.
12th episode is normally like the Christmassy episode. I
Yeah.
don't know, the Krampus Carol.
Yeah.
I'm looking for flowers for taco. Okay. Baby Jeffrey Jesus is one. That was the one right before this one was Baby Jeffrey Jesus. See, so there's a lot. Remember, like him being in this play
Yeah.
is part of this. So
Yeah. Okay.
we're missing a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
I-
the last couple seasons, it doesn't seem like they're talking about Christmas. The 13th
Yeah.
stage is the great night of Shiva. No, none of it's
Yeah. So I kind of give it middle marks in terms
Sure.
of, the balance between Hanukkah and Christmas. So, you know what? Let me just go ahead and then jump to my next question, which is, does this episode capture the spirit of Hanukkah? And that's whatever Hanukkah means to you. And I hear it sounds like, Jonathan, you've got an opinion.
no,
What do you think?
it doesn't. It's barely even mentioned, and he calls the menorah a candelabra. It's
Candelabra.
and he
And,
he infers that dreidels are butt plugs. So
Mhm.
But he washed them off, so it's okay.
yeah, he washed them off of the sink.
Yeah, he washed it in the toilet.
No.
No? So Travis, do you agree, disagree?
I agree that it does not. I wish I knew more about Hanukkah, and this episode did not teach me anything. I like the concept of the converting to Judaism for
Mhm.
whatever reasons that some of these characters do that. I love the concept that Rafi is converting so that he can sleep with Ruxin's sister.
Yeah.
Well, it also helps to have the tip of his penis is black, so he needs to have that
God.
cut off because he left it out in the
Got that
snow.
frostbite.
The idea of that, and keep in mind, this episode takes place over the span of 1 week, of
Yep.
time. So
Mhm.
he has cut off the tip of his penis, and by the end of the episode, is about to have sex with
Yeah.
the sister.
Well, and-
So
With from a library where he stole a paper cutter, or from a
Yeah.
school? A school.
from like the one of those old fashioned paper
Drop
cutter with the
arm,
big
yeah.
blade that you drop
Yeah.
down.
Oh, don't worry. Tebow and I Tebow still
Oh,
works
yeah.
in print. I used to work in print. We had those for a while until it
Yeah.
was like, they don't make straight cuts.
No, they always pull a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, they pull to the
Yep.
side.
Ooh. See, now I'm going to disagree.
Mm.
And maybe I'm paying fast and loose, but part of the miracle of Hanukkah, part of the spirit of Hanukkah is the miracle of the oil lasting 8 nights. It's kind of divine help unlooked for. That
Okay.
that's a miracle. That something you don't think can happen, you don't expect to happen, and yet it happens. And then at the end, Jenny, she gets a sack fumble, run back for a
Right.
touchdown. She gets that 8-point play. She gets that miracle to win the trophy, to win the Shiva in the end. And I think that kind of, the miracle, and part of it is big, and something that's big with Jews is, the community, that we stayed together and we were true to our community, and that's how we survived through a tough time. And it's so Kevin's been, I don't know, we kind of talked about this plot, like Kevin's been sleeping over at Pete's house because he's upset Jenny won't let him tinker with her lineup. She's getting fantasy football advice from her rabbi. But eventually they make up, they reconcile, and she takes his advice, and he talks about She was going to start the Dallas defense, and he says, "Hey, Tennessee, they're playing the Jags." So she lets him tinker with her lineup, and in the end, it's the Tennessee, it's the Titans defense that gets the 8-point play that allows her to win. It's the community, a husband and a wife. That's a kind of the smallest unit of a community. That family, they come together, they stick together, as a family, and that leads to the miracle. I think that's very in line with the spirit of Hanukkah. So I actually give it high marks in this category. I think this is a very
Why didn't you
Hanukkah
see all this
episode.
stuff, Travis?
Yeah.
Obviously, it was right there in the episode.
I did like that final scene in the church when this all started happening. That was a fun way for Jenny to win. I love the character, the way they write Jenny and created her character, and that she's probably the best fantasy player in the show.
Yes.
She's definitely better than her husband, Kevin. And I want to say she wasn't in the league until
Right.
season 2 or 3?
So that died second year because that dude died. They went to the funeral.
Right. Okay.
Which is stupid because it's an 8-man league. Just get another person and have a 10-person league. But yeah, I agree. Okay, if you're going on that, then yes, it's super Jewish in the fact that at the end that Ruxin has paid a choir to sing a song, because that shows us a vengeful God, and the Old Testament is nothing but a vengeful God. Is that what we're looking for?
That Old Testament God is very much a Ruxin. Absolutely.
Oh, he is definitely Ruxin, forever unclean. That is. And he's always worried about his little baby.
Yeah, so let's just jump. I mean, a bunch of stuff happens that is entertaining, but isn't really that important to the whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we end up in a church where so baby Jeffrey is playing Jesus in their nativity play, while these ne'er-do-wells are in the audience, but they're all following the game on their phones. I guess this must be a Sunday.
No one's shouting them.
Nothing makes me more uncomfortable when watching a show like this than when people are obviously in a quiet place and they're talking just obnoxiously loud.
They're just talking.
Yeah.
They're yelling. I mean, Jenny gets up when this play happens. Of course, they're yelling. She's yelling at her phone as she's watching the play unfold. And then she gets up and she's doing a dance and singing about how she's the Shiva. She's won this league.
And everyone should suck it.
Yeah, everyone should suck it. Which is not something you usually do in a church. So Jenny wins and then Kevin loses. So in the same household, you've got the Shiva, the champion, and the Ruxin, the last place. And at that point, Ruxin leads in a choir, which we didn't really get. We find out that what he says. I think it's that Ruxin's connected to the priest of this church through the EBDB.
Yes.
And I guess he uses that as blackmail material to allow this choir thing, though maybe he must have just said, "Oh, well, can I bring a choir in?" I'm assuming he didn't tell what this choir was going to be singing about, because
Ruxin has the ability in this series to make these grand things happen. Like at one point, he hires the Chicago Bears to do like a reenactment of the '85 Bears, whatever that song was, like
Super Bowl Shuffle.
The Super Bowl Shuffle.
So he has the ability to make these huge things happen that no one would ever, no one in this rinky-dink little amateur fantasy football league would be able to. I mean, they meet players every season,
Yeah. Well, that's one of the fun things about the show, and kind of getting away from this episode and the holiday theme is the writers, the showrunners must have been very popular, and the show must have been very popular because you get things like you have Lizzie Kaplan playing Ruxin's sister, who I think she's only in it.
On it. Jeff Goldblum's in it. Like everybody.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum is Ruxin's father.
Yep.
Yeah, so they get big stars and they get football players. They get like not like the last guy on the bench. They get if you follow football or if you play fantasy football, then you will certainly recognize.
They got Ocho Cinco back when he mattered. This is a flash in the pan thing. Like when you see them, you're like, oh, 2 years later they washed out. But
Well, yeah.
But all of it of the year of that season, they were the biggest players.
Yeah. Yeah. So then they get people on. So yeah, so we wrap up with Ruxin leading in this choir doing, the Hallelujah chorus with special lyrics, Hallelujah, Ruxin screwed ya. Hallelujah, Ruxin did this to ya.
I think we
which is, yeah.
we briefly skipped over the whole like nativity thing, how it goes south, because Rafi, the uncle to baby Jeffrey, who is playing, he's playing Joseph.
Kenyatta.
Yeah. He gives him some special lines to add into the play, and then the kid comes out with a knife and tells him that, like, if he comes into his manger, he's gonna stick him.
And a huge afro and beard.
Yeah, he looks like
a medallion.
So,
which is historically accurate. I mean, this is the Middle East. They would have been Semitic people, Joseph and Mary and Jesus, which is funny. I mean,
half
it ties
Jewish, half Mexican, as we know.
Yeah,
that is,
as we know,
that is the blend.
As we know. And Ruxin says, like, he's pushing for this hookup between Rafi and his sister, thinking that, that Rafi will convert to Judaism in order to appease the sister and kind of get up her denim skirt. And then, his son, Ruxin's son, looks up to his uncle, and that'll be an influence. If the uncle's Jewish, then he can get his son more interested in the Jewish side of things, which actually calls back to an earlier episode we talked about Friends, the one with the armadillo. In that show, Ross is, it's another mixed marriage where the father is Jewish and the mother is not, and Ross is trying to get his son more interested in Hanukkah and kind of get him away from the influence of Santa, and ends up dressing up as an armadillo, which doesn't make any sense. But so this is actually a theme we've talked about in other episodes, that Ruxin's trying to get his son more interested in the Jewish side of his heritage. So it all, there's a reason. It all fits together in the end.
It's the reason of the season.
The reason for the season.
What's funny is that in that set, you can definitely tell they're chintz in on the all the stuff, because there's no. This would be the fourth day of Advent. This would be like this is the biggest night of church's year.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing up. There's nothing except the nativity. Like there's no garland. I was just like, where's the garland?
Right.
Well, that's why
I'm from a weird world where I converted. So I'm like some of these people on the show, other than, I didn't have to cut the tip of my penis off. That's
so you're the Rafi of the group.
Yeah, well, always. Yeah. I've always been the Rafi. Hey, if you don't know who the Rafi of the group is, it's you. But yeah, I converted. So I was Christian for the first, 18 years of my life, and it was like garland and candles and the Advent wreath. And I grew up Baptist, so I don't know if everybody has that kind of stuff. But it was there were bows everywhere. It was very festive, and unfortunately, that to this day has ruined some of Hanukkah for me, because that same kind of pageantry isn't used in Hanukkah. Hanukkah is a different kind of holiday. It's not really it's not a year ender like Christmas is. Kind of like, well, the year's ending. Here we go. We're wrapping up. So
yeah, Hanukkah is just it's a more of a minor festival in the Jewish calendar,
and we've kind of had to, over the years, the Jews have had to decide, like, well, just make it something more, for the kids, for the kids,
for kids,
because you don't want to have kids literally like out there like, why is these people getting all these presents? That kind of sucks. So it's one of those. It's definitely harder to deal with in that way. So I think at the end of the day, most shows always lean on, hey, how are we gonna have Hanukkah be fun this year,
right?
As opposed to Christmas, which is this huge commercial thing, and most of the people in America are Christian, so
it doesn't take as much work to make it seem fun on television.
Yes.
So let me move on to my next question. I think I know where you're going to fall on this, based on previous comments, but I'll ask it anyway. So, a lot of what we've done in our previous holiday specials, we've talked about the movies that kind of become part of the tradition, the holiday specials that people watch every year. Is this Is this an episode that you would, or maybe do you watch this every year for Hanukkah?
No.
I'll start with you, Travis. There you
Oh.
go.
I sit down every Hanukkah and I put on this. No.
No.
Watch the Sunny Christmas special instead.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's my
fair.
recommendation.
Yeah, that's what it needs. It needs that level of a Sunny Christmas special.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is nothing. I wouldn't watch this. I would watch it in a rewatch, but I'm not going to watch it. I'd actually watch.
Because it feels like an afterthought for the showrunners. Like this doesn't feel like anything. It just feels. It doesn't even feel like a season finale.
Nope.
It really just kind of it's just a wet fart of an episode almost. There's good stuff in it, but it's missing some epic. They've had some great season finales, and this one just
a choir singing at the end. You
yeah.
can't get more epic than that.
I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of see, like, I think if I'm doing a rewatch, I may try to time it so that I end up watching this particular episode, towards Hanukkah, towards the end of the year, around December. But I think you're right.
I don't know where they were with getting re-upped.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are they doing? Is the end of the season? Did they know they were picked up yet for the 6th season? FX is always so. Other than Sunny, every show on there, I'm like, you're lucky if you get a year.
Yeah.
So
yeah, certainly, yeah. And this is one of those shows in that time where you wouldn't know the season would wrap up, and you wouldn't be sure if there was another season coming.
Right. Which also to me it means that this wasn't that epic. So they must have known. Because it's not epic. They could have written such a great ending for the show at Christmas, and
it's
Hanukkah.
like you said earlier. They could have sent Andre to El Salvador. Is that what they were?
Yeah.
We didn't even touch on the reason why all that happened, but that would have been a great way to end the episode. Him, maybe Skyping in, trying to get a message through at the end or something like that, and then that's where he is for the entire until the next season starts, and for some reason then he returns from being abroad, or do that.
They're always shitting on him, so it's perfect. Yeah. It would be hilarious for him to not be there at the end.
Think of how much of a pompous ass he would have been if he had come back from a foreign country, doing all these cleft palate surgeries.
No child's cleft behind.
Yeah, think of how
you can come up with a better.
He would have been the next season, being like this. I did this. When I was doing this for charity, that would have been a great direction to take Andre.
Well, they could have done it where he wins, but then he can't take the trophy and he can't enjoy it because he's in El Salvador.
There you go. Yeah.
And then by the time he comes back, it's the next season. You're not the champion anymore. That's over.
He didn't even get to celebrate his.
That would have been good.
Yeah, would have been good. Yeah, so I'm with you. Like this. Yeah, it's a good series. I enjoy it. It's something I could see continuing to pull out every couple of years to do a rewatch, and again, maybe trying to time it so I'm watching these the season ending holiday episodes around December, but it doesn't really stack up towards against some of the other holiday classics.
Yeah, especially if you got I know some of the ones you have in there, Sean, but even the Friends episode is still more, it's more Christmassy. I don't know if it's more Hanukkah, but it at least has some level of Christmas, whereas this hasn't. This barely has any level of Christmas. I keep forgetting it's Christmas because it's, they're in California shooting this, but they're supposed to be in Chicago. There's you never see snow. I guess that scene with Rafi and Rebecca, there's snow.
Yeah.
On the ground in front of the house. But
when they're out in the van,
yep, on one of those hills of Chicago. we have famous hills here, in case you're wondering.
Chicago is known for its hills. Well, it's Christmas because there's hay in the church.
Yeah,
right.
I don't know. I'm Jewish. Apparently, that's a thing. Jonathan and Travis? Is that something you do around Christmas? There's hay in the church.
That's not a Christian thing. That's a farmer thing. He's from Indiana. He knows exactly what. There's hay everywhere.
I used to have to annually buy 2 bales of hay to put on the outside of my house so that my downstairs bathroom wouldn't freeze.
From the spirit of the Lord at Christmas.
From being on an exterior wall and having those pipes, not insulated well enough.
Yeah, bales of hay are you gotta have hay in your nativity, man. A real nativity.
Gotta have that.
Jesus was born in a manger. Remember, he's born in
It's a
basically
manger.
a trough,
Fresh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
a food slop trough, and it's gonna have hay underneath. I like you're that Jewish. You're like, is hay a part of?
I don't know if that quite qualifies as kind of quote unquote that Jewish, but
That's pretty
yeah,
Jewish.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what churches do.
I'm country.
You
I'm
do
country
your
Jewish.
because I'm
So
country.
so tell me this about Hanukkah. It's spread across 8 nights. Is there
Mhm.
one particular night where you would have a bunch of people gather? I mean, I understand like the families would maybe do something special each night, a dinner or something. But is there like one night of Hanukkah that everyone gets together?
Like, is there a beginning of it? Kind of like it's like together.
Yeah, there's church and tradition. I mean, I think officially it's just 8 nights. I don't
Hmm.
think that kind of like in the origin, there's nothing special. It's not like Passover is another one that's 8 nights, but then there's like you do special seders, like the first 2 nights are a big deal there. But there are different communities celebrate different things. There are places where they'll have a big bonfire where they like collect all the unused or the remnants of the candles and the wicks that are left over, and they'll have a big fire on the last night. There's another holiday, Rosh Chodesh Tevet, which falls on the 6th night of Hanukkah, and in some communities, what you'll have the girls and the women of the community will gather and kind of tell tales and recall Jewish heroines of the past, and particularly relating to the Hanukkah story is Judith, which is one of our kind of foremothers, who was a Jewish woman during the time of the Maccabees, and Hanukkah was kind of active in that same time frame. So there are some things that different communities will celebrate, or different observances on particular nights. But in general, and I think particularly with most like Western Jewish communities or American Jewish communities, it's just 8 nights. There isn't like a special night.
Here's the problem. They didn't codify this stuff early enough like the Christians did. The Christians go, I don't care if you're Presbyterian, Methodist. Here are the things we're going to do. We're going to do a tree. We're going to do a wreath. We're going to do candles. Like they set it out. Whereas the Judaism, the fun thing about being in Judaism is it's kind of, it's the old country buffet. Go back as much as you like, partake as much as you like, kind of make it into what you want it to be. If you are like me, I am not a conservative Jew. I am not a Hasidic Jew. I am not a lot of different kinds of Jews. And like I have friends who I would consider them extremely non-traditional, but they also keep kosher. So, they choose what they want. I love a religion that has the kind of a nice loose system to it. I don't know if that's how Sean, if that's how you grew up. Like, I don't know if you grew up in a more conservative family or the opposite, and you became more conservative. I don't know what kind of Jew you are. I mean, I know you, but I don't know what kind of Jew you are.
Yeah.
What kind of Jew are you?
What kind of Jew are you? So we went to a conservative temple, which is sort of the middle ground of the Jewish spectrum. Kind of you've got your Hasidim and your Orthodox on one end and Reform on the other. We were kind of in the middle. Well, the temple we went to was conservative, sort of in the middle, but we were on the light end, the less strict, the more Reform end of observances of like kind of the daily rituals and so forth. But yeah, Jewish it's kind of like like Yiddish, where it's which is a mix of kind of Hebrew and mainly German, just sort of a mix of languages that that the Jews were exposed to in Europe, and a lot of the observances are that way as well. You find the different communities throughout the world, the different Jewish communities will have particular traditions and celebrations. You've got your Spanish Jews versus your Eastern European Jews, and your Russian Jews and African Jews. All have different things that kind of pick up little bits of the local customs. So yeah, there's a little bit of that. And it kind of gets reflected in the Hanukkah tradition. So, the oil being, the oil lasting 8 nights is sort of very central, is the Hanukkah story. So you have fried foods, but, you've got the potato latkes, but then you've got some places where they do like fried plantains if you're in an area where plantains are common. So, you can kind of fry whatever, traditional foods you have. And that makes it Hanukkah.
Yep. Hanukkah's in your heart, Travis. It doesn't have to be out in the stores. It's not in a magical building where you have to go to.
Oh,
Hanukkah's
that's
inside of you
why
the whole time.
Target has like an end cap of Hanukkah items, and the rest of the store is Christmas.
Right.
Okay.
We are the end cap of religion.
The end cap.
It's like, well, you can't not put anything out, but
Here's some blue and silver stuff we just kind of had.
when you see it, you always go, do you think Hanukkah is a birthday party? Because I feel like you think Hanukkah is a birthday party because the stuff you put out is for a birthday party. So all I want is like every year I collect, Meredith laughs at me. I'm like, every year I'll find something I'm like, oh, look, this isn't tacky. Because it's all like paper that I'm like, this is junk. Like over here is this Christmas stuff and it's awesome. And I want, like, I still put garland in my house. Like I put because I like the smell of pine, and I could put blue ribbon on that. That's fine, and some candles in there, no problem. But it's every year I'm always trying to find more, holiday, more Hanukkah type stuff. Because also my parents are Christian, so we don't have a Christmas tree, but we hang out with them. Like this year, I'm going to Dollywood, the most Christian place for Christmas. So I will be there Christmas Day. They are closed.
You mean tomorrow?
Tomorrow. Right now, I am in Dollywood. I'm not in Dollywood.
As we're listening right now, you're calling live from Dollywood. What kind of Hanukkah decorations do they have at Dollywood? You can a reporter on the scene.
They are closed Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I will be in a hot tub eating fried foods like a good Jewish boy. In the mountains, okay?
And washing off those dreidels.
Yep. I'm going to wash them off. Don't worry.
Don't worry. So I think we've kind of run the course. We've kind of run away with this episode. Before we wrap up, I want to ask, I'll start with you, Jonathan. Do you have any special Hanukkah memories, any Hanukkah stories you want to share with our listeners?
No.
No is an acceptable answer.
It's the end cap of religion. That says it all. There's nothing to
on it. I don't want to be. No, it's you know what? It's a very stressful time because it's 8 days of gifts for your children, and that's a lot of pressure over 1 day of gifts for your children. I know it's usually you give them one each day and it's fine, it all works. But it was very stressful early on. But now we do experiences with my kids because they're older. So we'll just go do stuff each night and just kind of hang out and like play games together. But hey, before COVID, this was the bonding time, was Hanukkah. Hanukkah was get together, you eat some great food, you have a good time, you hang out with your family.
Nice.
Since COVID, I'm like, I don't need to be around you as much. It's not special anymore. I'm around you all the time. So, it has changed a little bit, but now we try this year. It starts on like the 18th, I believe.
You're right. Yeah.
So,
and you'll be at Dollywood.
Oh, I won't be there yet. Oh, they're open for Hanukkah. Just in case you're wondering, hey, Jews out there, Dollywood is open for Hanukkah. So,
go some Chinese food and then go to Dollywood.
Yeah. Hey, that's the most Jewish thing ever.
There you go. Yeah. How about you, Travis? Any Hanukkah memories?
It's so hard to pick one,
Other than watching this episode of The League.
Since I can't pick one favorite Hanukkah, memory. No, I wish I'd be interested to experience a Hanukkah, but again, it's not one night that I could like go to, But
right.
No, I would.
You'd have to go with Jonathan to Dollywood for 8 nights.
Coming to Dollywood.
All right, let's get the Airbnb. Here we go.
The EBDB B&B.
Yeah,
B&B.
We are not Eskimo brothers, I don't think.
That you know of.
Yeah,
we'll have to run the numbers on that. But so let's wrap it all up. Thank you both, gentlemen, for sharing this holiday and sharing this episode with me and sharing it with our listeners. And I'm sure they'd want to share more with you and hear more from you. So I'll start with you, Travis. Why don't you let our listeners know where they can find you?
Yeah, so I am a host of the Real Comic Heroes, like Sean said up at the top. We do comic book movie reviews. We branched out from we don't just do comic book movies, but we do James Bond and Planet of the Apes and that sort of stuff. We've got a big backlog. Currently, we are on hiatus. My co-host Patrick, he has been in the process of moving house for the last couple months, and he needed to take a break from podcasting. So as of this recording, and probably as of when this airs, there probably hasn't been a new episode for a little while. But we did do a fun a reading of a never made Spider-Man movie from 1994 that would have eventually turned into the version that James Cameron was going to do. So we did a kind of a read through of that script with voices and all that stuff. So that's available. But there's still 7 years worth of episodes to check out there. So Real Comic Heroes, Real with 2 E's. And then, I also do Marvel Events Timeline. That show also on hiatus, but there's still a decent little backlog. We've only kind of been going for a little over a year, so you can check that out anywhere as well.
Yeah, those are 2 great shows. I would encourage people to check those out. And if you're not familiar with them, you've got a very healthy back catalog that people can get caught up on.
He's been podcasting for like ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's OG.
2015.
Mm-hmm. Going way back. And Jonathan, I believe you have a couple podcasts going on yourself.
Speaking of hiatuses, I'm in my second year of hiatus with Minute Impossible. We will come back. I swear to God, we're going to finish. We do the Mission Impossible movies 1 minute at a time with my friend Chris from college. And I also do a show called The Cast and the Furious, where we watch the Fast and Furious movies 1 quarter movie at a time, which is a lot less work. And please, that one, that's with my friend Murrin. And I'm going to name it now, because have you had Robin on this podcast?
No.
I'm going to name it now.
Oh, wait. No, I have had Robin on. What am I talking about?
Did he talk about Highlander cut by cut? Because we're doing that. We're going to do a cut by cut series, which is we're going to start with sword movies. So the greatest sword movie ever is Highlander. Then we're going to probably do some other ones like Beastmaster, things like that. And then we might get into things that we think loosely define as cuts. Basically, we're taking the minute by minute model and turning it into cut by cut so we can do bigger chunks of the movies. Rob and I will just start that in the new year, because he's all full up.
Yeah, Robin was with us last night where we covered Seinfeld, for Festivus. But I don't think he mentioned that. Must have slipped his mind.
We haven't done anything
saving
yet.
It for you.
So I've now put it out there in the world, so we have to do it. So
now you have to do it. All right.
I'll third podcast that I'll do for a while.
And then you'll go on hiatus.
Well, no, I mean, you know what I need? I need a secretary to help me out with this kind of stuff. And Robin is the kind of person that is extremely on the ball when it comes to recording. I need someone to just say, hey, show up in a recording. Okay. And I'll do that. So that's what we're going to do.
And you'll do that. Okay. And listeners, you can always show up for us at nextscenepod.com and nextscenepod on the social media. And I will also, I'll throw in a plug for my personal page, which is at catandshawn.org, where I link to all my podcast stuff as well as my guest appearances. And I actually happened to stop by for a few minutes of that Minute Impossible, where I talked about a few minutes of those Mission Impossible films. So you can check that out at catandshawn.org, along with all the other wonderful podcast stuff. And so, listeners, thank you for listening, and I hope you will join us tomorrow night for our eighth night, our exciting conclusion to this Hanukkah special. And so we will see you next time on The Next Scene.
Shiva Kamini Soma Kandrakram Shiva Kamini Soma Kandrakram.
Hey!